we're ready this year. At my dorm, we have emergency kits for earthquakes and wildfires, but I'm sure there's something more local I can send you with a link.
Okay, smart.
Protect your legacy. Visit ready.gov/plan for the tools and tips you need to start your emergency preparedness plan today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council. They are our love bugs and companions. They are our pets, our family, and they make life better. When we face unexpected challenges, so do our pets. That's why we're on a mission to support people and their pets. Whether donating a bag of kibble, sharing an Instagram post of a lost cat, or welcoming a foster pet into your home, every bit of kindness counts. Visit petsandpeopletogether.org to learn how to be a helper in your community. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
There's danger out there. It lurks on highways and quiet neighborhood streets. It's more likely to kill you than a shark, and more terrifying than the biggest snake. Distracted driving claims lives every day. Every notification, swipe, social post, video, or selfie while driving risks your life. So while you might think public speaking or the zombie apocalypse is scary, what's really terrifying and even deadly is distracted driving. Eyes forward. Don't drive distracted. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
This is Old Time Radio USA.
The following is a WON Jimbo Fail Exchange radio production.
Countdown for blast off. X minus 5, 4, 3, 2, X minus 1, fire.
If you're looking for action-packed classic fun, look no further.
Carter, it's a machine gun. Look out, Daddy!
Up in the sky, look! It's a bird! It's a plane! It's Superman!
For the best in old-time radio adventures, you've come to the right place. This is one nostalgic weekend.
The Irene Dunn, Fred McMurray Show. Starring Irene Dunn as Susan and Fred McMurray as George. Together in the gay, new, exciting comedy adventure, Bright Star.
Have you heard what happened on the Star?
Did you hear what he said to her?
Do you know what she told him?
Yes, the whole town's talking. The Star they're talking about is the Morning Star, a newspaper. The her they're talking about is Susan. Lovely, attractive, headstrong Susan. And the him, well, you can see him right now walking down the street over there. Yes, and believe me, if he knew what was about to happen, he wouldn't be whistling.
Hey, Jack.
Yeah? Oh, you mean me?
Yeah. You a reporter, writes pieces for the paper and stuff, ain't you?
That's right.
Uh-huh. Well, let's step into this alley here, will you? I got an item for you.
News, eh? Sure.
Right here's a good place.
Yeah, the sun was kind of hot out there anyway.
Yeah.
Well, friend, what's this item you've got?
Well, it's strictly personal, chum. You've been making inquiry around about concerning the Guaranteed Always Flowing Oil Development Company, huh?
True, I have.
Yeah, you've been saying like that company ain't on a level.
Well, you might say I entertain certain doubts.
Look, let's make it simple, eh, chum? You've been saying that you are going to print that stuff in the Hillsdale Morning Star.
Those are my intentions.
Yeah, well, the president of our company, Mr. Carter Gaston, he asked me to convince you otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Print nothing but praise about our company, or I am going to see that you land in the obituary column.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's fair warning, friend. But I think I should tell you that I used to be heavyweight champion at my college.
Oh, you was a champion?
Yeah. Don't believe me, eh?
Well, yeah, sure, champ, sure, but... Wonder just what college he went to.
Mr. Harvey. Wow. An altercation with the truck?
I'll exchange witticisms with you later, Sammy. I want to see Miss Armstrong.
Sure. Who doesn't?
Susan, I've got something to say to you.
Shh. I'm on the phone, George. Really, Mr. Gaston? No. No. Well, he just came in, Mr. Gaston, and I'll certainly talk to him. Not at all. Goodbye, and thank you for calling, Mr. Gaston.
Susan, I've got something to say to you.
George, really? Look at your suit.
Well, suits get this way when they've been bounced around in the gutter. Occupants still inside.
Oh?
Oh, she says. Try to control your vast outpouring of sympathy, Miss Armstrong. About this phony oil outfit that everybody in town is falling for.
I've just heard from Mr. Gaston, George. He told me how you assaulted that poor little salesman of his.
He what?
What made you do it, George?
Sunspots. Now listen, Susan. I'm going to write an article blasting Gaston and his crooked outfit from here to...
Just what proof have you?
Well, none. Yet. But I'll have
George, I know character. I've talked to Mr. Gaston over the phone, and from what Alderman Connolly tells me
Alderman
about him...
Connolly, he's as hard to bribe as a head waiter.
I know character, George.
Will you stop saying that?
Shouting will not convince me.
All right. So we won't print anything. So Gaston sells his phony oil stock to the whole town. You happy?
Do I have to remind you, George?
That you're the editor, I know. No. That you inherited the paper from your father and did very nicely before I arrived. Granted. That I have a nasty, suspicious mind. I concur. Have I left out anything? Oh, yes. You know character.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Actually, George, you worry me with all your suspicions. Why don't you come to dinner tonight and we'll talk things over?
Comfort. All right. But if you think you're going to bribe me with food, you're right.
Working late tonight, Mr. Harvey? Lift your feet, huh?
Yeah. I'm just whiling away the time till 6:30, Sammy.
Whiling away. Okay, put 'em down. You and the boss gonna live things up a little tonight?
Miss Armstrong has been kind enough to invite me for a platonic dinner, yes.
Ha.
For one so young, Sammy, you have a very nasty ha.
Ha.
Miss Armstrong is interested in me only as a reporter.
That phrase can have a very sad history, Mr. Harvey.
Sweep your floor, Sammy.
You know, you could be a success, Mr. Harvey, if you wanted to be.
Your confidence touches me.
Why don't you marry Miss Armstrong and let her take you out of all this?
Thank you, Horatio Alger.
Anytime. 6:15, Mr. Harvey.
Oh, thanks. Oh, say, Sammy, you haven't got a couple of bucks for a box of chocolates, have you?
There's a romantic imagination. Chocolates. Take her an orchid. A single rose.
A single rose, huh? Sammy, have you got a buck for a single rose?
No.
Well, it's time to go.
Visitor, Mr. Harvey.
Yeah, so I see.
Good evening, boy reporters. Miss Armstrong here.
What's it to you?
What's it to you? I wish I'd said that. Gets things like that off all the time, this kid.
You should hear him when he's hot.
Stay off my side, Sammy. Miss Armstrong's not here, and she won't be back.
Well, I don't blame her. Take a message. My boss, Mr. Gaston, he's a very big man in oil. He enjoyed talking to Miss Armstrong on the phone today. He wishes her to call on him at his hotel suite tomorrow. Can you remember all that, or should I write it down?
Don't bother. Incidentally, chum, that was a pretty lucky punch you got in this afternoon.
Well, it happens all the time.
You think you could do it again?
It figures.
Mr. Harvey, the paper needs you.
Stand aside, Sammy. This won't take long. All right, you.
Poor Mr. Harvey.
Wonder what else he learned in college.
How's the dinner coming, patients? Mr. Harvey should be here in a minute.
Everything's under control, Miss Armstrong.
Well, I want things to be especially nice tonight, patients. Mr. Harvey and I have been having, well, one of our disagreements.
No.
But he was quite nice about coming to dinner.
Big of him. Let's see. He doesn't get paid until tomorrow. Was he nice or just weak from hunger?
Now, George always speaks very well of you, Patience. And your cooking, too.
No fool, Georgie. What time is old freeloader due?
About 6:30. I thought we might have a leisurely dinner and then retire to the music room later.
Uh-huh. And then you just happen to wander over to the piano, hum a few bars of something romantic.
You think that's too corny?
George is a corny fellow. He might even bring his saxophone along.
No, I think that's in Hawk. Well, you'll do your best on the dinner, won't you, Patience?
I'll pretend I'm cooking it for my favorite movie hero.
And after dinner, you'll just, leave us?
Oh, sure. Want me to burn any incense?
No, I don't think so. No, George has hay fever.
If it's for free, he's got it.
Well, I've got to finish dressing. Oh, Patience, what can I wear to make him really notice me?
How about a corsage of baked potatoes?
Oh, he is nice, isn't he?
Hungry, but nice.
And tonight might even be the night that, you know.
I know. Tonight might be the night.
I hope the piano's in tune.
A man who plays the sax would never notice.
It's so nice to have a man around the house. It's so nice to have a man around the house. Someone who is glad he found you, who will put his arms around you, and his kisses just...
I'm giving 2-1. Nothing happens tonight. Nothing. Good evening, Mr. Harvey.
Good evening, Patience. More beautiful with each passing hour.
It's my perfume, Amour Hollandaise.
Turn me aside with the jest, Patience, but the flame still burns on.
You'll find a glass of water in the kitchen if it gets too hot. Hey, something happened to you.
Nothing at all.
Oh, sure. Well, have a chair, gorgeous George. Miss Armstrong will be descending the grand staircase momentarily.
Comfortable chair. Pleasant house. Can't beat the cooking either. Hope my jaw's not too sore to enjoy it.
George? Well, Patience should have told me. I had no idea you were here. George, what's happened to you?
I brought it on myself.
But I only left
It's
you...
nothing, Susan, nothing. Susan, you didn't dress just for me.
Dress? Oh, this? Oh, it's just an old thing of mine.
Well, it certainly does things for you, or vice versa, whichever the case may be.
Thank you.
Kind of sorry now I didn't put on my other tie.
Sit down, George.
Huh? Oh, didn't realize I was standing. I tribute to your dress.
You're gallant.
You know, Susan, it always surprises me to see you when you're outside of the office. You look like a different person.
Oh, thanks very much.
I didn't exactly mean it the way it sounded. I just meant that, well, women in business, you know.
Our place is in the home.
No, not that at all. In fact, I can't imagine you in a home. I mean...
Yes.
Well, what I mean is you... Well, where's my hat? I'll go quietly.
Oh, just don't talk so much, George. Well, look. The piano. I haven't played in ages. Do you mind?
No. Won't bother me at all. I mean, I'd love it. I love it.
Will you help me move this bench, George?
Certainly. Yeah, is that all right? You know, Susan, I was just noticing the candlelight. It does something to you.
Oh, what?
It makes you look, I don't know, changed.
Does it?
Susan, we shouldn't argue all the time. Like that thing today. I shouldn't have blown up the way I did. It was foolish.
Oh, it's all right, George.
What do we care if some crook peddles a few shares of phony oil stock here in town? Hillsdale hasn't been taken for a long time.
I am sure, George, that the development of the new Hillsdale oil field will do a lot for our city.
Oh, sure. Hillsdale, the new Arabia.
And why not? I have every faith in Mr. Gaston and his organization, and I know character.
Character. You told me.
Now, look, here's something you didn't know, Mr. Harvey. There's an heiress stopping at the General Grant Hotel, Miss Cecily Burnett, and she's here to try and buy up the entire stock issue. Freeze Hillsdale out.
Well, it'll be the warmest winter we ever had.
Oh, George, you're the most exasperating. Cigarette.
Thank you.
We shall not discuss Mr. Gaston further.
Quite. Ah, the gall of that phony. He sent word that he was quite fascinated with you and would like you to call at the hotel tomorrow.
Oh, well, how interesting.
Susan, you're not going.
Well, why not?
Why not? You think I'd let you alone with that fake moose?
Well, I fail to see that you have a great amount of choice in the matter.
Oh, you do? Well, if you're going, then I'm going with you.
There seems to be more than the usual confusion in your mind, George. You are a reporter on my paper, not my guardian.
Well, right now, what you need is a guardian.
Dinner.
Right amount of jealousy rearing its tousled head.
Oh, sure. Just because I can smell a crook a mile off, it's jealousy.
Well, if you can smell a crook as well as you can scent food, well, I might be impressed.
Personalities. All right, if we're down to personalities, how about...
Dinner is served.
What?
Dinner.
Oh. My arm, Miss Armstrong?
I can manage quite nicely, Mr. Harvey.
Somehow, I doubt very much that tonight is the night.
Now, suppose we get back to our two stars, Irene Dunn and Fred McMurray, in the second act of our story. Let's see now. Susan is just about to go down.
Good morning, Patience.
Morning, Miss Armstrong. Your breakfast is ready.
Thank you.
I take it that last night was not exactly an evening with Valentino.
Your assumption is correct, Patience.
Too bad. You got a big investment in food in George.
A romance, Patience, cannot be built entirely on stuffed cabbage.
That's open to question. However... Oh, phone. Are you in, Miss Armstrong?
To Mr. Harvey, no.
Hello? Georgie.
I am not in.
She is not in, Mr. Harvey.
Wonder what he wanted.
Why didn't you talk to him and find out?
I couldn't.
Well, Hello? He wants to know if you're still not in.
Yes.
Hello? She says yes. He wants to know if you said yes, you're not in, or yes, you are in.
I'll take it, Patience. Hello?
Susan, I just wanted to make sure you weren't serious about calling on that phony oil promoter today.
Mr. Harvey, as editor of the Star, I cannot see how my appointments are a source of concern to you.
But, Susan,
However, your movements as a reporter are in my field. Therefore...
But, Susan...
Therefore, you will cover the PTA convention at 10, the dog show at 11, the Rotarian luncheon at 12, hog breeders exhibit at 1, the chrysanthemum grower show at 2, and be in my office from 3 to 5 to write your stories. Any questions?
Yes. Are you mad at me?
Yes.
Poor Georgie.
Well, morose is a word for Mr. Harvey.
I'm a strong man, Sammy. I wish to brood in silence.
Miss Armstrong has gone to call on the oil promoter. Pretty racy fellows, oil promoters.
Go fill an inkwell.
Why don't you strike back, Mr. Harvey?
How?
In the movies, Mr. Harvey, you would burst in on Miss Armstrong and Mr. Gaston in some suitable disguise. Like, say, a plumber.
Well, that's a silly idea if I ever heard one. Plumber, huh?
Borrow a wrench and a plunger. Your suit is just right for it.
Sammy, I may do it. I may just do it.
The spirit of the pioneers.
And if this Gaston steps 1 inch out of line... Sammy, where can I get a nice, big, fat wrench?
Yes, ma'am?
Mr. Carter Gaston, I'm Susan Armstrong from the Hillsdale Morning Star.
Oh, come in, Miss Armstrong. Very considerate of you to come.
Oh, not at all, Mr. Gaston.
Here now. Just take this chair, Miss Armstrong, where I can look at you. Like to look a person right smack in the eye, ma'am. Can tell what sort they are in a minute.
Well, I always think so, too.
Nothing shifty-eyed about you, ma'am. If you'll excuse the liberty.
Well, thank you, Mr. Gaston.
And you and I, Miss Armstrong, we can do a lot for this city of yours. Civic betterment.
The greatest good for the greatest number.
Exactly. Did you know, ma'am, that a young lady of great wealth is right here in this same hotel trying to buy up my entire issue of stock before the public gets a chance at it?
Well, you're not going to sell.
Well, I haven't met the lady yet. Miss Burnett, of the Eastern Steamship Burnett's, I believe.
Uh-huh.
but I would much rather give the honest folks of Hillsdale a chance to cash in on the rich natural resources of their little community.
Well, I think that's a fine sentiment, Mr. Gaston.
Why, thank you, Miss Susan. And if you'll permit me to say so,
Plumber!
Why, George.
I hear you got a leaky pipe, Mr. Gaston.
Before you come busting in here, son, knock.
No, I'm sorry, but don't let me interrupt anything. I'll just go quietly on with my work.
You were saying, Mr. Gaston?
Why, well, where what? Oh, yes. If you'll permit me to say so, Miss Susan, the good opinion of a fine woman like yourself means more to me than any...
What?
The good opinion of a fine woman like you means more to me...
I can't hear you.
I said the good... Well...
I found the trouble.
Good. Then you're leaving.
No. I have to rip out a section of the wall here.
Miss Susan, may we continue this conversation over dinner?
Where are you eating?
Will you call me, Mr. Gaston?
Oh, my pleasure, ma'am. Goodbye now. Until tonight.
I'm sorry. I'll be back. I forgot my pickaxe.
George Harvey, if all the low, underhanded, sneaky...
Treacherous?
Yes.
Susan, if you can't see through this whole swindle by yourself...
You will allow me to make my own judgments, Mr. Harvey. I know character.
I know, Susan. Susan, this oil scheme is a fake. What's more, I think this so-called heiress here in the hotel, this Cecily Burnett, is a fake, too. And I'm going to interview her and prove it.
Oh, you are? Oh, you just love that.
Purely business, Susan.
Oh, you're so right, Mr. Harvey. And I'm going to be around to see that it stays purely business.
Well, Miss Burnett?
Yes?
I represent the Hillsdale Morning Star, Miss Burnett, and...
But how clever of you. I'll take one.
No. You see, Miss Burnett, I'm a reporter.
Well, of course you are. Come in, sit down, report.
Thank you.
No, right here, by me.
Oh.
Now.
Well, just a few questions about your business in Hillsdale, Miss Burnett. You see...
Oh, you want to interview me? You sweet thing, you.
Thank you. You see, there's an oil promotion scheme underway here in town, Miss Burnett, and
Brown eyes.
Oh. You see, I have reason to believe this Gaston isn't what he presumes to be, and...
6'2"?
No. 6'3". Mm-hmm. But if you're really considering putting money into this thing, Miss Burnett, well, I just don't think it would be very wise.
Excuse, please. A 3 o'clock snack.
Susan.
Courtesy of the General Grant Hotel.
Put it on the end table. Now then, as I was saying... how do you know I like wavy hair?
You want it over here?
Yes, and please hurry. Now then, golden boy, your name is,
George. George Harvey.
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. Will you please get out of here? I'm sorry, George. I didn't catch your last name.
It's...
Dope. What did you say?
Oh, I said I hope everything's all right.
Well, it's not all right. Now, you please get out of here and get out fast.
Oh, certainly, ma'am.
Now, where were we, golden boy?
Golden boy. Oh, brother.
I'm sorry, George. Now I know what you want. You want to save me millions of dollars, and you want to tell me all about it tonight over dinner, right?
Roughly, yes.
Oh, you do sweep a girl off her feet, Georgie. What time is dinner?
Oh, 9-ish?
You speak the language.
Oh, I get around.
But not around me, you reporter.
Until tonight, Cecily. Huh?
Oh, until tonight. Au revoir, Georgie.
Au revoir, Cecily.
Oh, these Frenchmen. Irresistible.
Well, Charles Boyer.
Coming in there as a waitress.
Oh, really,
Susan, of all the low, conniving...
An heiress. If she's an heiress, I'm Pocahontas.
If you were any judge of character, Pokey, you'd know that this girl is in danger of being the innocent victim of that swindler you were so eager to make a dinner date with.
I was eager. Well, I didn't notice any long pauses in the conversation while you were making a date with her.
We will not discuss conversations overheard through keyholes.
Banging into a room as a plumber. I suppose that's recommended by Emily Post.
Now, you listen, Susan.
Now, you listen to me, George. After all, where you go tonight is not of the slightest concern to me.
Likewise, I'm sure.
Au revoir, Mr. Harvey.
Au revoir, Miss Armstrong.
Good evening, Monsieur Harvey and Madam.
Oh, bonjour, Charles. Table for two, huh?
If you will follow me, please.
Oh, what a delightful little bistro, Georgie. Sort of a subway with music.
It is a little crowded, Cecily.
Yes.
Monsieur Harvey, your table.
Susan.
George. Oh, well, how nice that we should have adjoining tables.
Adjoining? They're practically overlapping.
Mr. Gaston, you remember Mr. Harvey, the plumber?
Pleasure to see you again, sir.
And Miss Burnett, Miss Armstrong, a waitress.
How do you do? How do you do?
And Mr. Gaston, Miss Burnett.
Real pleasure, Miss Burnett, ma'am. Why did you have to come here?
Quite pleasure, Mr. Gaston. And entirely unexpected, I'm sure.
Shall we sit down, Cecily?
Yes, of course. Just bring me a shoehorn, Georgie, and I think I can make it.
There. No trouble at all, was it?
Oh, pardon me, George. My salad. I know you don't like garlic, so if you'll just wring out your sleeve.
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Mr. Harvey, sir, as long as you've got your elbow in my butter, would you mind just running your arm over my corn on the cob?
I certainly would.
Ignore them, Georgie. I'm sure they had a lot to talk about before we came.
Well,
Yes, we did have a lot to talk about, didn't we, Carter?
Carter?
I'm sure George wants to tell Cecily all about the plumbing business, and you were explaining oil to me.
I bet he was.
Oh, we don't have to talk, Miss Susan, when I can feel your little hand in mine under the
But
table.
Mr. Gaston, my hand
That's
isn't
my
under the-
hand, you cheap double-crossing Chisholm.
Oh, Cecily, you...
Out on a business engagement tonight, you told me. Why,
Yes,
you...
sit down, dear. You're an heiress.
Yes, and I'm just about to become a widow, too. Let me at him, George.
George, yes, George, let her at him.
Now, take it easy, Cecily. Hey, you got trouble, Mr. Gaston?
Glad you come in, Rocky. We're blowing town. My wife, the heiress, just opened her big, rich mouth. Come on, Mrs.
Don't you let them
Vanderbilt.
get away, George.
I'll stop them, Susan.
Stay here, Rocky. If the demon reporter here gets noisy, keep him quiet. Come on, Cecily.
Well, I can handle him, boss. Hey, sit down there, fire eater.
Sit down, nothing. This time, you muscle-bound clown, I'm going to... Susan, look out!
You take your hands off my George, you...
Hey! The little lady hit me!
And so did I.
Oh, George, you were so masterful.
Oh, you can't fool around forever with George Harvey, Susan.
Oh,
Of course, you
nothing.
helped a little.
George, you did it.
Well, have it your way, Susan. We won't argue.
Mr. Harvey, what has happened?
Well, only 2 for dinner, Charles. The other couple won't be staying.
Our stars, Irene Dunn and Fred McMurray, will be back in a moment.
George,
Yes, Susan?
finished your story?
Just about. I had a call from police headquarters that they couldn't hold Gaston and his wife. They actually hadn't sold any stock yet.
George, you don't actually think I was taken in by him, do you? Do you?
Susan, you don't actually think that I was taken in even for a minute by his wife, the phony heiress, do you?
Well, I don't if you don't, George. If you know what I mean.
I think I know what you mean. After all, Susan, we both
But
know
no character.
Irene Dunn and Fred McMurray will be back next week in another exciting comedy adventure in the gay new series, Bright Star. This is Harry Von Zell inviting you to join us then.
Stay right where you are. There's more action coming away straight ahead on One Nostalgic Weekend. But first, this message.
What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up. Hold my hand.
No, you hold my hand.
Here we go!
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more.
I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
"Hey, you got this. Just breathe." Hey, we're pretty good.
Yeah.
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
And now, back to one nostalgic weekend.
Jessica Tandy and Hume Cronin in The Marriage. The sponsors of this program offer no endorsement of the opinions, philosophies, stubbornness, or confusion of the persons represented therein. However, with the conviction that marriage remains the most popular domestic arrangement between friendly people, NBC takes pleasure in presenting by transcription one of the most distinguished couples in the American theater, Jessica Tandy and Hume Cronin as Liz and Ben Marriott in the new dramatic series, The Marriage.
Before the children were born, when I was working for Hunt's Fifth Avenue as a buyer, I used to attend a great many cocktail parties. These were the days when Ben was at law school, so we used to dine rather completely on hors d'oeuvres and restrain ourselves with difficulty from wrapping some up in a paper napkin to take home. Since then, we haven't exactly made a habit of cocktail parties. The other day, though, one of Ben's associates at the office had a party to celebrate his acquisition of a new wife. Well, naturally, we had to go along. He met us at the door with a broad grin and a martini in each hand.
Ben, what a surprise.
Surprise? We were invited, weren't we?
You're great. Priceless. Oh, Mrs. Marriott, he's priceless.
Oh, I don't know. Make me an offer.
Well, two of a kind. Oh, now here, slip out of those wet things and into a dry martini.
Thanks.
Now, you'll have to excuse me. Marcia's around here somewhere. Well, time you
Ben, isn't that dry martini line Dorothy Parker?
Benchley, I think. Martini?
I suppose so.
What's the matter?
Look around. Nothing but black flannel suits, bare shoulders, and not a familiar collarbone in the place.
It's an advertising and television crowd. Larry's wife produces some kind of television for him.
Oh? Which one is she?
The blonde, I think. Over there by the piano.
Oh, spectacular.
Settle, Ben? Oh, you've just got to meet Marcia. You'll love her. Oh, here, have a fresh glass. We're way ahead of you, you know.
I haven't started yet.
You're great, Ben. Wait till I tell that to Marcia. Sydney, come here. You all
Did I say something funny?
I don't think so, but then he's way ahead of us.
I haven't had a chance to catch up.
Darling, oh, darling, I've been looking all over for you.
Ben, it's you.
Me?
You were absolutely sweet out on Fire Island. I had the grandest time.
But
I never had the chance to thank you for that lovely evening on the sailboat.
Sailboat?
And you know, you won the bet.
I have?
So I just better pay off right now.
Hey!
Isn't it lucky I didn't give you odds? Oh, it's so nice seeing you again, Chucky, dear.
Chucky?
I think perhaps I ought to tell you. I'm not Chucky. I'm Ben. Ben Marriott.
Oh, you are? Well, I suppose I should bring my glasses to parties instead of things always happening.
It is?
Come to think of it, I didn't have my glasses out in that sailboat either. Oh, well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Well, it's been nice anyway. Do you mind if I take that drink? I'm just parched. Thank you. Oh, Rosie, excuse me. Rosie, darling, guess what? It wasn't Chucky after all.
Take my handkerchief.
I swear I have never been out on Fire Island.
I wonder what the bet was.
Well, ready for a fresh drink already? Oh, Ben, you're a real booze hound, but here you are.
But I haven't had... That girl, she... Well,
I
came in...
told Marcia what you said. She's dying to meet you. Hey, Jerry! Jerry, you old pirate.
Booze hound? I didn't even get the olive.
Is that a martini you've got?
Here you are.
Thanks. It's rush hour in by the bar. I'll pay you back later. Marsh always did serve good martinis, but I guess you know that.
Why should I?
Oh, it's all right. Everybody knows.
Everybody knows what?
Well, it's Old Home Week. We're all here. Whitey Adelaide, the life photographer. Harry from Detroit. Johannes, what's his name, the violinist. The whole crowd.
Oh?
Where did you take over? Before that stage designer in Rome or after the press agent in Hollywood?
I must have missed something.
She sure is a lovable girl. Don't you think so?
I never met Marcia.
Did you almost marry her? I did. Johannes, what's his name, had the license, but there was some trouble with the immigration officials. Larry was his lawyer.
I don't think I'm getting through. I've never met Marcia.
And why are you here?
You raise an interesting point.
But naturally, I thought everybody belonged to the club.
The club?
Marcia's ex-boyfriends. Just like Marcia throwing a party for all of us to meet her husband. Well, if you'll excuse me, I'll get a refill.
Hey, that's my glass.
Ben, you might just as well go on the wagon. Hello there.
Hello.
I've been saving this lovely, cool martini for somebody like you all evening.
Well, how nice.
You are Prescott Ames, the producer, aren't you?
No, I'm sorry. I'm Ben Marriott, the lawyer.
That Ted Franklin swore you were Prescott Ames. Now, what good is a lawyer going to do me? Oh, that dirty skunk. Ted, you loaf?
Wait a minute. That drink was...
Why didn't you offer her a cut-rate divorce?
Hey there, Ben. You ready for another, huh? Oh, boy, you sure can pour it down.
Yeah, I've got a hollow leg.
Yeah. Well, how do you like her?
Marcia, we haven't met her yet.
Oh, you've just got to. Beautiful, isn't she, huh?
She's very lovely.
Very interesting, too. Ben, it's a whole new world. I don't mind telling you that girl's been around.
So I gather.
What do you think of her, Mrs. Marriott?
Oh, I envy her. I've always wanted to be around. Sometimes I sit at home with my knitting and pull my shawl around my shoulders, and I just wish I had been around.
Liz.
I know how you feel. Take Marcia's television forum. Do you know that last week we had 3 senators to dinner and an editor of the Christian Science Monitor?
We had a monitor to dinner, one of Pete's friends. He was third-floor boys' room monitor.
Elizabeth?
I suppose there is a great gulf between Marcia and, well, the ordinary housewife.
Oh, it's true. We suffer from so many occupational hazards. Dishpan hands, untidy carpet naps. Lately, I've even had rings on my sink.
Liz, cut it out.
It must be very exciting to be a woman who's, been around. I've had such an ordinary time of it.
Well, there's nothing ordinary about Marcia. Shall we drink to her? Oh, Ben, I'll have to borrow your drink.
But that...
To Marcia. It's lucky the best man didn't win. You get that? The best man didn't win?
I got it, Larry. I'm afraid we've got to be going.
Oh, not feeling well? Oh, Ben, you shouldn't drink so much. Every time I turn around, you've got an empty glass in your hand.
Well, I've had a little help.
Oh? Oh, now look, Ben. Ben, they've done wonders. I have a friend who's with them. They'll come and help you fight it even in the middle of the night. Now, you stick with it, Ben. You'll beat it.
Good night, Larry.
Give our love to Marcia. On the way home, we stopped at a little place. Well, Ben wanted a martini.
At last.
Be careful, Ben. Moderation.
Moderation? I didn't even hold a drink for more than 30 seconds.
It was quite a party. Are you sure you've never been on Fire Island?
Why do you do that?
What?
Try to give people the impression that you're a country mouse or something.
Well, I am, in a way.
You've been around.
Do you really think so, dear? Oh, you're sweet.
Oh, now, Liz, cut it out. You make people think that I stole you out of a girls' boarding school.
Well, didn't you?
How about that Princeton boy? Edward Jones III?
I only went out with him twice.
Well, then there was the one from your hometown. What was his name?
Putnam Trimble?
That's the one.
Oh, he was nothing.
Huh. And that advertising one at Hunt's? He still sends you Christmas cards. French Christmas cards.
They're lovely, aren't they?
Well, they may say Joyeuse Noël, but they don't look like Christmas.
He was a perfectly respectable man.
Is that why he was banned from the annual company picnic?
Ben, what are you trying to do? Provide me with a pass? We'd often talked about the men I'd gone out with before I married Ben. And there were a few old girls of his that became family jokes, but now the laugh seemed to have just a little edge on it. I was talking to Mother about it one afternoon when I dropped into the little antique shop she runs in Greenwich Village.
She had her ex-boyfriends at the party?
In platoons. Oh, Mother, I'm not in the way now, am I?
Oh, no, certainly not.
But you've got customers.
Oh, that's not a customer, that's a browser.
How can you tell?
Well, after a while, you develop an instinct. They used to spend their time at the cafeteria on the corner, but it instituted a 25-cent minimum check, so now I get them.
After the party, we got to talking about my old swains. Remember Put?
Oh, he was a nice boy. He's in town, you know.
No.
Oh, yes, Libby Harkness wrote me. She didn't give any details, you know, Libby, but she said he was coming in. Oh, I haven't seen that boy for years. I remember he came to see me the week before you were married. Just sat on the porch and ate everything in the fruit bowl.
He always did. Remember how we used to set out a pound of grapes? He used to swallow the seeds, too shy to do anything else.
He liked you, Elizabeth.
Oh, Mother, really?
Yes, he did. He was heartbroken when you married. I could tell.
Between pieces of fruit?
Well, yes. He ate them, but he didn't seem to have his mind on them. Oh, it seems so long ago. Remember when he took you down to Boston for that football game?
In the rumble seat. You know, I should get in touch with him.
You should.
Just to show Ben what kind of a past I really have. Nothing more exciting than Put Trimble.
Now, that isn't fair. After all, he was a few years younger than you, dear. He was always very nice to me.
He loved you, Mother.
Yes. Yes, he did. You don't suppose it was the fruit, do you?
Neither Mother nor I really expected to see Put. He was part of a world we'd both left far behind. But then, a few nights later, the world jumped and caught up with us.
Mother, it's for you.
Who do you suppose it is?
Probably Louise Begley. She'll be very brief this time. She called you.
Thank you, dear.
You're welcome.
Hello?
Elizabeth?
Yes?
Well, hello.
Hello?
I would have recognized your voice anywhere.
Who is this?
Put. Put Trimble.
Put! My goodness, Put.
What is it, a motorboat?
It's Put Trimble. Well, how have you been?
How have you been?
Fine.
Well, Elizabeth?
Well, Put.
Well, we ought to get together. Elizabeth, could you come and see me? You and, Ben?
Well, I don't know.
Oh, I'm not going to be in town long. I'd just love to see you. Both of you.
Oh, it would be nice.
Tonight. Elizabeth, meet me tonight. I'm at the Hotel Mohawk.
Tonight? Well, I don't know. Ben, he wants us to meet him tonight.
Tonight?
Suppose I meet you in the Tomahawk room at the Mohawk, 10:30?
Well, I don't know. Just a minute, Put.
I have to go back now. I'll see you then.
Put? Oh, dear.
He hang up?
Put your shoes back on, Ben. We're going to the Tomahawk room at the Mohawk. expected Ben to be absolutely furious. Once he gets his shoes off, he's settled for the evening. But somehow he didn't seem to mind. He was glowing with a quiet satisfaction as we headed downtown on the subway.
How long has it been, Liz? 15 years?
Oh, more than that. I haven't seen Pud since we were married.
And he called you, eh? Wanted to see you.
What are you getting at?
Oh, nothing.
Oh, for goodness sake. Pud Trimble is about as romantic as a Holstein cow. He's at the Mohawk, isn't he? That's where all the salesmen stay. He'll probably sit there just swallowing grape seeds. The Hotel Mohawk is the one where everybody meets everybody else in Times Square. It was crowded when we walked in. There was a convention of retail dry goods salesmen. The Tomahawk room was on the 8th floor. The billboard outside said, "Dance to the rhythms of Freddie Baker and his Continentals." But we went in anyway. The orchestra was on a break when we came in.
Here you are, madam.
Thank you.
You are just in time for the second show. Just a few minutes. Did you get order?
Oh, no, thank you.
Liz?
Huh?
$3.50 minimum.
Oh, I'll have a chicken sandwich and a cup of coffee.
Rye and water?
Thank you, sir.
Well, where is he?
Oh, we're a little early. Ben, do you suppose he's a retail dry goods salesman? That'd be just like Put.
You just try to keep minimizing things.
If you knew Put Trimble, you wouldn't say that. I can just see him now eating apples. He used to peel them in one piece. He'll make a perfect retail dry goods salesman.
Here come the Continentals. He'll probably dance sambas with you.
Put? He couldn't even do the Virginia reel. I remember he sent away for mail order dancing lessons before his senior prom. I helped him.
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Tomahawk room at the Hotel Mohawk.
Getting close to 10:30.
I don't see him.
Well, there's Freddie Baker and his Continentals. If he doesn't hurry up, he'll miss the show.
Georgia
Ben.
Manners
What?
and a few talented
What's the
lads
matter?
from Le
He
Jazz
won't miss the
Paris.
show.
He
That's
won't?
the last stand of
Him,
jazz
there in the
this sweet
spotlight.
commercial world.
Freddie
Such a
Baker?
club that
That's
colored rock
Put
the whole
Trimble.
country.
I froze. I think I snapped a swivel stick in two with my bare hands. There he was in a sport coat, dark wavy hair and a bow tie. I could see a ghost of Put Trimble about him, red check Mackinaw and galoshes. I sat transfixed through the whole show like a chicken with his nose on a chalk line. After the last number, the lights went up and he threaded his way over to the table. Ben leaned over and murmured into my ear,
Retail dry goods salesman, huh?
Well. Elizabeth, darling.
Put,
You haven't changed. You haven't changed since you were 16.
Put, this is Ben.
Oh, how do you do?
How do you do?
Well.
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 Put, I didn't know you were a band leader.
Oh, you didn't? Well, I've been sort of out of touch. Been on tour in Europe for about 4 years.
In Europe? When did you become Freddie Baker?
Oh, well, Putnam Trimble didn't sound very continental.
And the musicians are really French?
Well, one of them is French-Canadian from Burlington. The rest are just boys from Local 802.
Oh, I just can't believe it. Put Trimble, a band leader.
You knew me when I was in my first band.
The American Legion Drum and Bugle Corps.
Yeah, and I was disqualified in the state championship for having valves.
Oh, Put, this is so wonderful.
Would you care for something, Monsieur Baker?
Champagne, Maurice, une bouteille de mum très froid. Eh, monsieur?
Oui, monsieur. Tout comme il faut.
Merci. Oh, Maurice.
Monsieur.
Une pièce de camembert. Pas si vieux.
Oui, monsieur.
Oh, excuse me, Freddie.
Oh, yes?
I knew you wouldn't mind if I just popped over for a minute.
Oh?
I saw you in Paris, you know, at the Club Dixie Page.
Oh, you did?
When I heard Freddie Baker was right here in New York, why, I came all the way in from White Plains.
Well, that's quite an honor.
Oh, it is. I haven't been in since the matinee for the last Helen Hayes play. I have all your records.
You do? Well.
I wonder, would you mind? Well, it seems rather silly, but would you mind signing my menu?
No, pleasure.
just right to my dear Hortense.
My dear Hortense. Ah, there you are.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Freddie. I just think you're darling.
I'm sorry, Liz.
Oh, pardon. It's precious.
Makes me feel foolish. Oh, this means so much to me, seeing you again, Elizabeth.
Well.
Well.
We sat and talked all through the break. And then, after the midnight show, we talked some more. Pop sat there in his sport coat with all the women in the room staring at him hungrily. And we talked about skiing on Hogback Mountain and Mr. Merston, our high school senior English teacher. We got home at 3 in the morning. And that evening, when it all came out, Emily turned pale.
Freddie Baker? Mother, you know Freddie Baker?
Well, when I knew him, he was Putt Trimble.
But he's the latest thing. Golly, he's later than Rosemary Clooney.
The lateness is catching. I think I'll go to bed early tonight.
What does he look like? I mean, is he as good-looking as his pictures?
Oh, it's hard to say, dear. I keep remembering him following the footsteps around our living room.
Did you go out with him, Mom?
Oh, once or twice. He was more sort of family friend.
It's hard to believe he could be that old. He's so good-looking.
If it will reassure you, dear, he's a little younger than I am.
Oh, thank goodness. Why did he call you Mother? Is he still in love with you?
Emily, that's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Why?
Ben?
Well, what's ridiculous about it?
Well, it just is.
I think it's an awfully interesting idea.
Well, as a matter of fact, he asked me to see him tomorrow afternoon.
When was this?
When you were getting the coat.
Mother, he wants to see you alone?
Well, I said I'd call him, but of course I won't go.
Why not?
Oh, Ben, really?
Oh, don't you think she should go, Emily?
Oh, yes.
Well, I feel a little silly about it. I'm sure he wants to talk about, old times.
Sure. Go ahead.
Ben, stop pushing me.
I'm not pushing you. Just your past catching up with you.
Oh, Mommy, do you have a past?
I hastened to reassure Emily that there were no skeletons in the closet, but I could see she preferred not to believe me. The next afternoon, she came to my room as I dressed and stared at the clothes I'd laid out on the bed.
Mother, you're not going to wear that.
Why not?
A tweed suit? A baggy tweed suit?
It's supposed to be baggy.
But you're going to meet Freddie Baker.
I prefer to think of him as Putt Trimble. It helps my sense of propriety.
Mother, wear the black taffeta. The cocktail dress.
Oh, don't be silly, dear. Oh, never two stockings the same color.
Mom, do you think that maybe all these years he's remembered you? That even in Paris or London, he was still in love with you?
Emily, don't be silly. Do you really think the black taffeta would be better?
Oh, yes. And you could wear black stockings.
Black stockings? Certainly not. I'd look like something written by Offenbach.
Think of him, Mom. Famous, successful, and underneath empty. Alone. Always thinking of years ago.
The black stockings would go with the dress, wouldn't they?
Perfect. You going to use eyeshadow?
Oh, it just makes me look as if I'd been up late.
Do you suppose he'll tell you? Do you think he can finally come right out with it? Oh, Mom, it's heartbreaking.
And this isn't too much shadow on the right lid, is it?
It's just perfect. It looks very beautiful and kind.
I'd better not be too kind. Well, zip me up. I took a cab to the Mohawk. I couldn't quite see taffeta and black stockings in the subway. Todd had a suite at the hotel, and we sat on a love seat and had coffee.
Remember how we used to sit on the porch, Elizabeth?
Mm-hmm.
I've thought of that many times.
You have?
You always remember the first girl you fall in love with?
I suppose you do.
No, you weren't the first one. There was a girl who sat in front of me in first grade. She wore black cotton stockings and had long braids.
Well, I used to hate those stockings.
But it didn't last. Not with her. I don't even remember her name. I remembered yours.
We were very good friends, Pat.
I suppose that's all it seemed. I never could say much in those days.
Well, you've been around since then?
Oh, sure. I've traveled a lot. I guess I've done pretty well for a kid who started in the Legion Band with an illegal instrument.
You've done very well, Pat.
You know, I don't think I've seen anyone from home for, 10 years. You have children, don't you, Elizabeth?
2.
How old?
15, that's Emily, and Pete, 10 years old. Would you like to see their pictures?
Oh, later. I want to talk to you, Elizabeth.
Yes?
Well, it's hard for me. Always was.
Well, that's all right, Pat. I'll understand.
Oh, I know you will. Elizabeth, you know, I always thought of you as my girl. Even though I know I didn't have any reason to. When I heard you were married in New York, I was sort of left drifting.
Were you, Pat?
I'd always thought that someday I could tell you, and then everything would be all right. Well, I guess I have now.
That was a long time ago.
But you haven't changed. I meant that.
Oh, I have, Pat. I have changed.
Not to me. Elizabeth, I know I haven't any right to ask you, but I was sure you would understand. I'm in love now. I don't have any reason to think you'd care, but, well, I want to tell you. Elizabeth?
The children were out visiting when I got home. The living room was dark. I came in, hung up my coat, and stepped out of my shoes.
Liz?
Ben, what are you doing sitting in the dark?
Waiting for you. Emily and Pete are out somewhere.
Oh. Will you mind scrambled eggs for supper?
No.
I suppose we could go out.
Oh, scrambled eggs are fine.
Maybe waffles with ice cream.
Forget about supper. Will you please?
Well, I can't. I mean, we do have to eat.
Liz, stop playing cat and mouse.
What do you mean?
I came home early from the office this afternoon. I had a headache. No, that's not true. I was, just nervous.
What about?
This Freddie Baker.
Put?
It all sounds very simple when you say put.
It is simple, dear.
Liz, I'm sorry I started the whole thing.
What whole thing?
Well, I got sore when you were running yourself down at the party. I've been sitting here figuring it out. I wanted people to think that I'd done as well as anybody. Pretty self-centered way of putting it, isn't it?
Oh, no, dear.
Well, what happened?
Oh, Ben, it was so sweet.
Sweet? What was sweet?
Well, it was a very brief encounter. I went there, and we talked about how he'd been in love with me.
In love?
And I was very understanding. Then I was going to tell him that I was touched, and that I'd always treasure it. But I didn't tell him.
You didn't?
No, and I was glad I didn't.
What do you mean, glad?
You see, my darling.
Liz, for crying out loud.
He explained that he'd been in love with me when we were in high school, and that I was the only one he'd seen from home, and he wanted me to meet her.
Who her? Whom?
That nice girl who sang with the band, Georgia Manners. Put's going to marry her, and he wanted me to approve.
Oh, no. Liz, are you serious?
I could have cried. I was all ready to explain that I was in love with my husband. I'd always think kindly of him. And
Oh, Liz.
Darling, you were worried. You were actually worried.
Of course I was. I know how wonderful you are. I thought surely he would, too.
Oh, Ben, you should have seen him. He sat there chewing his nails. And Ben...
What?
He ate the whole bowl of fruit.
Ben and Liz Marriott will be back in a moment. In the meantime, let us extend an invitation on behalf of our stars, Jessica Tandy and Hume Cronin, as well as the National Broadcasting Company, to all of you to drop by next week at this time for another half-hour observation and transcription of The Marriage, written by Ernest Kenoy. Evelyn Varden was heard as Abby, Denise Alexander as Emily. Others in the cast were William Lally, Kathleen Cordell, Leon Janney, Ann Diamond, Charmaine Allen, and Carl Weber as Putt Trimble. The Marriage is an NBC Radio Network production directed by Edward King. This is Bob Defton speaking.
Oh, Ben, what am I going to tell Emily? I don't dare disillusion her.
Go on, disillusion her. What's good enough for her parents is good enough for her. Let her start early.
Good night, Ben.
Good night, darling.
Listen to The Hollywood Story next on the NBC Radio Network.
Stay tuned for the second half of One Nostalgic Weekend right after these messages.
What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up. Hold my hand.
No, you hold my hand.
Here we go.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more.
I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
Hey, you got this. Just breathe. Hey. We're pretty good.
Yeah.
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
And now, part 2 of One Nostalgic Weekend.
Now, the story of Dr. Kildare, starring Lou Ayres as Dr. Kildare and Lionel Barrymore as Dr. Gillespie.
Blair General Hospital, one of the great citadels of American medicine. A clump of gray-white buildings planted deep in the heart of New York, nerve center of medical progress, where great minds and skilled hands wage man's everlasting battle against death and disease. Blair General Hospital, where life begins, where life ends, where life goes on.
Well, Dr. Kildare, how nice to see you in clothes.
I beg your pardon, Molly?
Oh, now you know what I mean. Doctor's tunics may be all very well and good, but a suit of clothes really does something for a man.
I'm glad you approve. What are you doing in Dr. Gillespie's outer office today?
His nurse is on relief.
You can find more excuses to get at that desk.
Well, I started looking after him 20 years ago, and I can't seem to break myself of the habit.
I see.
I'm not in here.
Oh, aren't you?
Might have known it'd be you. Well, what are you all dressed up for?
Going out? How do I look?
I don't like your tie.
Oh, what's the matter with it?
Knot's too big.
A knot is not too big. It's just right.
I hate big knots stuck under men's chins.
Well, you aren't wearing this.
Well, I'm looking at it.
You won't be looking at it very long. I'm taking it right out of here.
Where are you going?
Got a date.
With a girl?
What else?
Well, with you, it's hard to say. You could have a date with a test tube, somebody's sick cat, or a monkey in the zoo.
All right. You don't have to elaborate any further. I have a date with a girl.
Yeah.
And a very pretty one. So if you don't mind, I'll be on my way.
Who's taking care of things for you?
Well, I haven't any emergency cases. One of the other doctors is standing in for me.
Who's the girl?
A gal from my hometown. Haven't seen her for several years.
Think you'll know her when you do see her? I remember there used to be the prettiest little nurse in Hackensack. One day I went back there, but you...
Yeah?
Well, that's another story. Well, Where are you meeting her?
At the zoo in Central Park.
Why the zoo?
Just thought I might get lonely for you.
Ah, get out of here.
Just what I was going to do, Dr. Gillespie. Good night. Hello, Janet.
Jimmy. Oh, you look wonderful.
Wow, so do you. Were you waiting long?
No, I just got here. I've been renewing some old acquaintances.
Oh?
Same lion is here. I know it's the same one. And I'd swear some of the monkeys are the same. How long has it been since?
Since we were here? Several years.
I thought so many times about how we used to come here to the zoo when I'd get to New York. Let's see, now, you were about 20, if I remember correctly. And I was 17. Life was a very serious thing in those days, wasn't it?
It certainly was. We spelled it in capital letters. Spent every waking moment worrying about what we were going to do with it.
Well, you got what you wanted when you were 20. You're certainly a successful doctor.
Did you get what you wanted when you were 17?
Hardly. At 17, I wanted to marry you.
No. Well, anyway, you're lucky. It isn't much fun being a doctor's wife.
I never heard your mother complain.
No, she never did, but I know what her life was like. Not just days, but weeks would go by when she'd only see my father as he gulped a cup of coffee on his way out of a case or on his way to bed at some unholy hour. Thought about you a lot of times, Janet. I meant to write, but somehow there just never was enough time.
Jimmy, do you think you'll ever find any time for real living? Don't you think there ought to be some sort of balance to life? Is medicine alone enough for you?
Has been for Dr. Gillespie.
Well, do you want to be like him?
No, not really. Not in the sense you mean. I'd like to marry someday and have a home and children.
I wonder if you'll ever take the time.
Oh, sure I will. Someday. We've got a lot of time yet. So have you, for that matter. You're so quiet. What are you thinking about?
An old Chinese proverb.
Oh, what?
Enjoy yourself. It is later than you think.
It's turned cold suddenly, hasn't it? Come on, let's hop a cab and get some dinner. You were always the best dancer I ever knew, Janet.
Oh, thank you. We used to dance a lot to this tune. Though there be pain and darkness too, I'll not complain. I'll see it through. The next line.
Let's see. Oh, poverty may come to me. That's true. Now, wait a minute.
You never could carry a tune.
But I should get A for effort, or at least a D, isn't it?
Oh, Jimmy, it's so good to see you again.
You know how I feel tonight. I feel as though some way we've gone back and you're 17 again. I'm 20. Nothing is real except this moment.
Oh, Jimmy, I wish nothing was. I wish nothing was.
Well, shall we get back to our table and have our dessert? I'm still hungry.
So am I.
Well, I'll be darned. Now, isn't that someone sitting at our table?
It certainly is.
Looks like... No, it couldn't be.
Hello, Jimmy.
Hello, Dr. Kildare.
Well, you're certainly the last two people I expected to find here.
Do you think you're the only one that can have an evening out?
Oh, Janet, I'm sorry. May I present Dr. Gillespie and Miss Bird? This is Miss Norman.
How do you do?
How do you do, Janet?
We do have our own table right over there. We just came over to chat for a moment.
Why, Molly, how nice to see you in clothes.
Oh. Well, you could hardly expect me to come to a place like this in my uniform.
You're from Jimmy's hometown, Miss Norman.
Yes, I am.
Then you knew his father.
Oh, I should say I did. He took care of me a few weeks ago when I had the flu.
Huh?
Hey, look at those kids. I always wished I could dance like that.
Well, who could dance to that music?
Oh, we could. Want to try it, Janet?
Really? Of course.
Sure.
Excuse us.
You go right ahead.
We'll cheer you on from the sideline.
Yes. Oh, my, she's a pretty little thing.
Yes, she is.
There they go. Say, look at them. They really can dance. Leonard, don't you ever dance anymore?
Only when they play a tango.
You never even danced a tango with me. Oh, yes. You danced a tango when you were taking out that girl from the folly.
Molly, there are certain things much better left in the deep, dark past.
Leonard, why didn't you ever marry?
Well, I always meant to. But somehow I was always busy. Or you were.
What? I was? Did you say I was?
Well, you don't think that if I had married, I'd have married anyone else but you, do you? I wouldn't have dared.
I wish I'd known that a long time ago. Oh, here they come.
Sit down, Janet.
I'll be all right in a minute. I feel so foolish.
Something wrong?
She got a dizzy spell on the floor. Here, drink a little water. That's right.
She's as white as a sheet.
Oh, I'm beginning to get my sea legs back now. I had the flu a while back. Oh, I told you that, didn't I? Anyhow, I guess I'm still a little weak from that. Gee, it's cold in here, isn't it?
You'd better put your coat around you. Do you want to go?
I think perhaps I'd better. I hate to break up the evening, though.
Well, you've probably been overdoing it a little. Flu's sometimes much harder to get over than you realize.
Well, it's been quite some time since I had it, though. Of course, I did lose a lot of weight. I suppose that takes time to get over, too.
How would you like to spend the night in the hospital? I mean, you could have a room there.
Oh, my goodness, no. There's nothing wrong with me that a good night's rest won't fix. I've felt like this 2 or 3 times before when I overdid. I'll be all right in the morning.
Good night, Miss Norman. So nice to have met you, dear.
Yeah, I'm glad to have met you, too. I hope you feel better tomorrow.
Thank you. Sure I will. Good night.
Now, you just take one of these silly little pills and go right to sleep,
I will.
Still wish you'd let me take you over to the hospital for an examination.
No, I'll come over in the morning. You'll see, I won't even need one.
Oh, all right, Miss Stubborn.
Good night, Jimmy.
Janet,
Yes, Jimmy?
tell me, did you ever outgrow that dream you had when you were 17?
No, I never did, Jimmy. I don't think I ever will.
Well, you know, maybe I've been selfish, concentrating on my own dream so exclusively. Maybe we should both concentrate on yours for a while and see if something can't be done about it.
Oh, Jimmy.
Good morning, Dr. Kildare.
Good morning, you beautiful, ravishing creature, you.
Say, someone should take your temperature.
Morning, Kildare.
Good morning, you divine, wonderful being, you.
Kildare, you're crazy.
Oh, sorry, Dr. Gillespie.
I think you ought to have your head examined.
Head? Then you're a very poor diagnostician.
Oh, I am I?
Sorry, can't stop any longer. She's waiting in my office.
You're out of your mind.
You're so right. Hello, Janet.
Hello, Jimmy.
How do you feel?
Oh, better, I think. Still a little groggy, though.
Just sit down. Now, we'll take your temperature.
Oh, I'm sure I don't have to.
Well, now, there's only one way to find out. Here, under your tongue. That's right. You know, I didn't get much sleep last night. Now, why? Kept dreaming of you. Well, what do you think you were saying to me?
What?
It's later than you think. Over and over all night. It's later than you think. Funny, isn't it? And then I'd wake up, I'd think of the strangest things. That blue formal you had for the senior prom. Do you remember it? And then the day I left for medical school, there was an early snowfall, and you had on a bright red cap. And when I kissed you goodbye, you were crying. I kept thinking of things like that all night. Things that happened years ago.
Oh, Jimmy.
Here, let me see the thermometer now.
Oh, Jim.
Come in.
Oh, good morning, Miss Norman.
Hello, Dr. Gillespie.
Well, how is the patient, Kildare?
Janet, afraid I'm going to have to order you to bed.
Why?
Well, your temperature's up a little.
Oh.
Well, there's nothing to worry about. Lots of things can cause the flu to flare up again.
That's right. A few days in bed and you'll be as good as new.
Oh, I certainly had no idea I was coming here to make a professional call, Jimmy.
Janet, you know, you used to say you thought I'd make a fine doctor. Well, now you'll have a chance to see me in action. You'll have a chance to see if I'm as good as you thought I'd be.
Jimmy, I put my life in your hands. professionally or otherwise.
Jimmy, it's almost 2 o'clock in the morning. You've got a hard day tomorrow.
I know. I was just standing here by the window thinking, or maybe I was praying, I don't know. These past 2 days since Janet entered the hospital,
You won't help her any by losing your sleep.
You examined her. Didn't you find anything different?
Rapid pulse, heart murmur, temperature 103.
Did you see the reports of the blood test?
A high leukocytosis, 25,000 in the blood culture. The presence of short gram-negative rods, remnants of flu bacillus that have come detached from the growths on the valves of the heart and are carried by...
The first time in my life I wish a report of yours didn't conform with a report of mine. I wish I were wrong.
Jimmy, we've had cases of subacute endocarditis before. It isn't necessarily fatal. We know what to do. Complete rest, penicillin. Medical science has made great progress in this kind of case.
Not many people realize what dangerous after effects the flu can have.
Well, there are rare exceptions, Jimmy.
Now, why does she have to be an exception?
What is this girl to you, Jimmy?
She might be a lot of things, Dr. Gillespie. She might be a lot of things.
We return to the story of Dr. Kildare in just a moment. Continue with the story of Dr. Kildare, starring Lou Ayres as Dr. Kildare and Lionel Barrymore as Dr. Gillespie.
How do you feel, darling?
Better. I'm very, very tired.
With your temperature's down?
Well, that's an improvement, isn't it?
It certainly is. Now, we've got to keep it there.
You look tired.
Me? Oh, I am a little.
A lot of troublesome cases?
Yes, a lot of troublesome cases. Janet, when you get over this, I'd like to have a long talk about everything. And then if you still want to, if you still think you could be happy as a doctor's wife.
Jimmy. Is this... Am I to consider this a proposal?
Grade A. Gilt-edged with a blue ribbon around it.
Oh, Jimmy, if I get well, there's nothing that would make me happy. You know that.
I didn't say if, Janet. I said when.
I know. I'm the one that said if.
Why?
I don't know. Perhaps because of an old Chinese proverb.
Well, Dr. Gillespie?
I examined her just you asked me to.
Yes?
The pains in her abdomen are caused by an enlarged spleen.
And that group of red spots below her collarbone?
Petechiae.
You're sure that's what they are?
They don't disappear on pressure. They're the right size and the... Well, I'm sorry, Jimmy. I'm sure they are. I think perhaps you better notify her parents if you haven't already.
Parents are dead. She has a young brother. I didn't want to alarm him, but like called. He'll be here today. I'm going back to Janet's room.
Molly's on duty. She's taking the case over.
Bless her.
I think I'll go back with you myself.
Temperature's high again. heartbeat palpitating.
Jimmy,
Yes, darling.
it was later, wasn't it?
Oh,
Later than we thought.
no, now, don't say that. Don't even think
I know,
it.
Jimmy, I know. But it's late. It's very late.
I'm going to get the digitalis, Jimmy.
Yes. Yes, I don't want to leave her.
You stay right here. I'll get it.
How is she?
She's failing. Developed into a pancreatitis. I want the digitalis.
I have it right here. Will it help?
Well, I hope so. The muscle wall of the heart and the endocardium are both diseased, and the heart valves and muscles have become infected. If the digitalis doesn't work, she only's got a short time.
Heart's failing.
There's one more thing we can do. Inject adrenaline directly into the heart to stimulate it.
I have the injection ready, Doctor.
Good. Dr. Kildare.
No, will you, Doctor?
Yes, of course.
Janet? Janet?
Bob, we tried everything we knew. There was nothing that medical science could do to save your sister's life.
Well, she was all right when she came to New York. She didn't have any sign of heart trouble. How could it happen so fast?
It was the results of the influenza.
Well, then why wasn't that known before?
Well, sometimes it takes quite a while for such symptoms to manifest themselves. By the time she collapsed, it was already too late.
She was... Well, she was all I had.
Yeah, I know, son.
Do you know what I'm going to do?
No.
I'm going to study medicine. I'm going to specialize in heart disease, and well, maybe someday I can find a way to help someone with the same trouble.
Son, I think that's a fine idea. And I'd like to do everything I can to help you. How about having dinner with me tonight, and we'll talk it over?
Thanks, Dr. Gillespie. I'd like to.
It's dark already. I didn't realize it was so late. This has been a very sad day for all of us. You wait here for me. Someone I got to talk to. Jimmy?
Yes? What is it?
Do you mind if I turn the light on? It's pitch black in here.
No, I don't mind.
How about some dinner? Janet's brothers are in here.
No,
and
I couldn't eat.
Oh, now, look, you're too good a doctor to take an attitude like that.
Am I? Well, I wasn't so good a doctor today, was I?
Oh, now, Jimmy.
Now, neither were you. In fact, the entire field of medicine didn't make such a good showing today, did it?
We can't win every battle, Jimmy. We can try, but we can't always win.
Dr. Gillespie, I don't think I want to be a doctor anymore.
What? Well, what would you be?
I don't know. Carpenter, laborer, maybe. I don't know. What good is it anyway? All the years of study, the work, the devotion that's demanded of you. And if you can't save a life, it really matters when the cards are down.
Jimmy, it isn't one life that matters to a doctor. It's all lives. You've lost a case, and you'll lose others. But when the results are added up, you'll save a good many more than you'll lose. Do you think you're the first man that ever had to withstand loss and grief? A girl you know is dead, and the world died with her. But you're still living, and so is your oath, and so are the people you swore to help in that oath. Janet's brother's waiting in my office. He wants to take up medicine. Think of that now. He wants to study heart disease and maybe someday help someone who has the same illness his sister had. Well, I'm going to take him to supper. Good night.
Dr. Gillespie, may I join you?
Ah, certainly you may.
I'm sorry. You're quite right. I don't know.
Jimmy, what happened yesterday's already in the past. And from the pain and grief of yesterday comes the hope of tomorrow. Because the field of medicine's growing. and expanding. Nothing can change what was written yesterday, Jimmy. But with study and work and faith, there's still hope of changing what might be written tomorrow. Shall we be on our way, Dr. Kildare?
Yes, Dr. Gillespie. Let's be on our way toward tomorrow.
In just a moment, we will return to the story of Dr. Kildare. Once again, the story of Dr. Kildare, starring Lou Ayres as Dr. Kildare and Lionel Barrymore as Dr. Gillespie.
Well, this is my corner. My hotel's just up the street. Thank you for dinner, Dr. Gillespie.
Good night, Bob. Good luck.
Good night, Bob. Oh, come over tomorrow. Let us show you around the hospital.
Thanks, I will. Good night.
Foggy tonight.
Yeah. Well, there's the hospital. We're almost home.
Looks like a castle shining in the mist, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. A castle illuminated by hope, rising out of the darkness.
Sorry I blew up tonight.
Huh?
Everything got too much for me for a few minutes. But medicine is my life. I wouldn't give it up for anything.
I know that. Dr. Kildare.
You have just heard the story of Dr. Kildare, starring Lou Ayres and Lionel Barrymore. This program was written by Gene Holloway and directed by William P. Russo. Original music was composed and conducted by Walter Schumann. Supporting cast included Lorene Tuttle, Eleanor Audley, and Skip Homeyer. Dick Joy speaking.
We'll be back for more One Nostalgic Weekend after these classic messages.
What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up. Hold my hand.
No, you hold my hand.
Here we go.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more.
I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
"Hey, you got this. Just breathe." Hey. We're pretty good.
Yeah.
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
And now, back to One Nostalgic Weekend.
From Hollywood, it's time now for...
Johnny Dollar.
What are you doing lying around a hospital? This is Dave Blaine, Johnny.
Are you here in Los Angeles?
No, I'm in Boston still. What happened?
I was with Mrs. Parsons this afternoon, trying to find out what happened to her husband. She missed a turn in the road.
How is she? Is she all right?
She was killed, Dave.
Oh, good Lord. Johnny, what can I do to help?
Nothing, Dave. Nothing much to do now. Parsons is back, and, well, now he's back, I'll wrap it up.
Johnny, what is it, pal?
She was a pretty nice person, Dave. I saw her die.
Tonight and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to the Eastern Casualty and Trust Company, number 25 Yardley Boulevard, Boston, Massachusetts. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Callicles matter. Item 3, 26 cents for a package of cigarettes, which the night nurse at St. John's Hospital bought for me. She also brought in a sedative. That was the last thing I remembered until about 5 o'clock in the morning. Look out! Look out! Look out!
Mr. Dollar.
Look out. Hey.
Here.
Oh.
You've had a bad dream.
Yeah, I guess.
You just lie down.
You
need some rest.
Yeah.
Can I get you anything, Mr. Dollar? Some water?
No, sister, no, thank you. What's your name?
I'm Sister Amadea.
You weren't here when they brought me in.
No. Now you just go back to sleep.
Sister, wait.
Yes?
I'd like to talk to you about it.
Of course. You mean the accident?
Yes, all of it. I'd feel better.
Well, we want you to do that. Certainly.
I came to Los Angeles for an insurance company back east.
Mm-hmm.
We had a report that a big executive in a stock firm out here was missing.
I see.
A man named David Parsons, junior partner with his father in the stock and bond business.
Oh, yes, I've heard of the Parsons family.
I talked to a man named Ecker, old Mr. Parsons' secretary.
Mm-hmm.
Ecker took me out to see the old man. He was pretty nasty. Wouldn't talk much about his son being gone for 10 days. Then I met David Parsons' wife. I told her I thought the matter should go to the police. She agreed with me. But later on this afternoon out by the ocean, she said she expected him to come back. She called the house, and they said David Parsons had come back.
Oh.
It was a strange afternoon, sister. I mean, we sat in the sand and talked about these things. I could have fallen in love with her. Maybe I did. I'll never know. Sister Amadea.
Oh, Mr. Dollar, you're more shaken up than you think. Really, you
I'll never get used to things like this.
Shh. Now you just sleep, Mr. Dollar. Go on now, go to sleep. The world becomes very heavy sometimes. Now just go to sleep.
Item 4, $14.95, one night in the hospital. When I got back to the Beverly Hilton, I bought a copy of the morning paper, ordered some lunch, and sat down to read about my accident. An unidentified woman was killed. An unidentified man was slightly injured in a car crash on Sunset Boulevard the afternoon before. No names, no details, no nothing. Strange. But even stranger was the appearance of Robert Ecker, old man Parsons' secretary, at my door. Then I didn't know why his eyes were red-rimmed.
Hello, Dollar. How do you feel?
Oh, all right now, I guess. Come in.
This whole thing's pretty terrible, Dollar. I just stepped up to see how you feel. Is there anything I can do for you?
No, nothing, thanks.
Mr. Parsons wanted you to know that he's concerned for you.
Tell him I'm okay. How are things there?
Young Mr. Parsons is pretty broken up.
He's really back then?
Oh, yeah.
Well, then, I'm just about through out here. Could I see him?
Mr. Parsons thought you'd want to. Yes.
Expense account, item 8, $178, airplane ticket, back to Hartford. Item 9, $43, hotel and board for 2 days in Los Angeles. Item 10, $6 cab fare. My plane was scheduled to leave at 9 o'clock that night. I checked out about 4 in the afternoon and went directly to the home of David Sr. He looked a little ashen when I came in, but his temper hadn't improved much. He pointed a crooked finger at me.
I've got this to say to you right now, Dollar. If you hadn't insisted on talking to her, she'd be alive today. She wouldn't have been with you driving that car.
If she hadn't been forbidden by you to see me, we wouldn't have had to drive around in a car. You have a drink around here?
Right there.
I didn't come here to argue with you anymore. My job was to find your son. Evidently, he wasn't lost. Ecker told me I could meet him here about this time.
You're pretty free with my whiskey.
You can afford it. You want one?
Oh, I get a jigger before every meal, that's all.
Cheers. Well, am I early or what?
David will be here any time now.
Have any arrangements been made yet?
You'll have to ask Ecker about that. I don't know.
I'd like to send some flowers, something.
That's always the logical gesture. This is Mr. Dollar, David. Come in. It's my son, David.
The man in the black suit wasn't what I expected in the way of David Parsons, Jr., somehow. He was tall and rangy, almost athletic. He had a good sunburn, a pair of square shoulders. I would have read him for an advertising man or a pro ball player. Certainly not for the investment brokerage business. We shook hands. He smiled wanly and lit up a cigarette.
Dad tells me you've been looking for me.
That's right, Mr. Parsons. Where have you been all this time?
Well, I took a freighter out of Los Angeles and rode it up to Oregon. Just a whim. Wanted to be alone and do some thinking.
How come no word?
Oh, that's a whim, too. Are you trying to get into my personal life?
No. Just curious again. Well, here's some reports I have to make out. If you'd sign them, I'd appreciate it.
Go ahead, sign them. Let him go.
Sure. I have a pen. Okay?
Fine, thank you.
Satisfied, Dollar?
Completely. What ship did you take up there?
Ship?
The boat to Oregon.
Oh, the Laureen B. Wintermaker Timber Company ship.
Oh, sure. Well, I'm glad you're okay. Thank you for your cooperation. I went back to my hotel, checked in once more, canceled my airline reservations, and put in a call to Robert Ecker. He wasn't in his office. A little arguing got me his home number. No one answered. I went out and spent $25, item 8, to rent a car. I drove it over to Ecker's apartment address. He wasn't in, so I waited. A half an hour later, he drove up, ran into his apartment for about a minute and a half, came back out and got into his car. When he pulled into traffic on Wilshire, I was one Buick behind him. He finally stopped at a place on Olympic Boulevard, the Parkway Funeral Home. I waited 5 minutes and then walked in. Robert Ecker stood in a semi-dark room, hands folded before him as if in prayer. He was looking down at the body of David Parsons' wife. Hello, Ecker.
Hello.
Came by to pay my respects.
Sure.
Who is she, Ecker?
What was that?
Who's this girl? She isn't Dorothy Parsons, I know that much. Who is she? We better talk about this.
Yeah, we better talk. Her name's Ellen. Her name was Ellen Myers. We're going to be married.
I'm sorry.
She was one of those lonely people that you find in this town. I mean, she worked a bit in pictures and drew and painted a little bit. I don't know how I met her. I just know that she was fresh and lovely, and she'd do anything for me.
Or for old man Parsons.
For me. She was mine. Everything else is his. She was mine. He blew up the other morning when I called up and said you were in town looking for David Jr. He said we had to steer you out. He didn't want you talking to anybody.
So he arranged that she'd be there posing as Mrs. Parsons.
He asked me to get someone. She was delighted with the idea. It was kind of a little game for her.
Where's the real Mrs. Parsons?
Home, I guess. I don't know.
I'll find that out. Now, tell me who's the guy I shook hands with this afternoon who said he was David Parsons, Jr.?
I don't know his name. Someone the old man hired to play the part for him.
Then David Parsons is still missing.
Yeah.
Why all the cover-up? Why doesn't the old man want him found?
He does want him found. He wants him found in the worst way. He's been turning the country upside down looking for him for a week now. There's something like 23 operatives from a private detective firm looking for him, but he doesn't want it to go to the police. He wants it out of the papers at all costs.
Why?
Parsons is going to merge with Little and Tennyson. You've heard of them?
Yeah.
The old man's got to take it easy. Heart attack. Parsons Jr. will get into the saddle when the merger happens. He'll take over the whole play. That is, of course, with the old man sitting down in Palm Springs dictating orders to him.
In other words, old man Parsons wants his figurehead to be on deck, clean and unsullied for the merger.
That's it.
What do you think happened to Junior?
I don't have any idea. What happens to any of us who work for Parsons? We give him lip at first, we get mad at him. In the end, he shakes out all the dignity and honesty you might ever have, and he makes you his own personal robot. Look at me, Dollar. He got me to make my girl play all that out in front of you. Now she's dead, and I'm still a robot for him.
Take it easy.
Yeah, sure. How did you get on to Junior?
Oh, he didn't look broken up. He was a pretty bad actor. He also gave some wrong answers about being off on a ship and so on. Hey, look, you don't have to say anything about talking to me.
Oh, but I will. I'll tell Parsons you pumped it all out of me. Won't worry him a bit. He'll figure out some other way to stop you. I told you once before, Dollar. He'll break your heart.
Now, here's our star to tell you about tomorrow's intriguing episode of the Callicles matter.
Tomorrow, we find out that Callicles was a Greek. Maybe the greatest one of them all. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, is transcribed in Hollywood. Written by John Dawson, it is produced and directed by Jack Johnstone. Be sure to join us tomorrow night, same time and station, for the next exciting episode of Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Roy Rowan speaking.
This is one nostalgic weekend on the WON Radio Network.
From Hollywood, it's time now for...
Johnny Dollar.
Ready with your Crestview number, Mr. Dollar.
Good.
Yeah?
Mr. Parsons?
Who's this?
Johnny Dollar.
What are you doing in town?
Still looking for your son, Mr. Parsons.
You met him yesterday. He's been found. He wasn't lost. So
I met the man you hired to convince me that he was your son. I know he isn't.
Listen, if you're going to make trouble...
I will if I have to. I have that guy's signature on 2 papers in my briefcase. It constitutes a witness forgery, no matter how you look at it. I'd be willing to call up a lawyer and see what kind of noise I can make.
What do you want?
I'll be out to tell you in 20 minutes.
Tonight and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to the Eastern Casualty and Trust Company, number 25 Yardley Boulevard, Boston, Massachusetts. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Callicles matter. Expense account item 9, $100, legal retainer. I hired an attorney named Robert Watson to arrange for a court order impounding all the records in the Parsons brokerage house. I also turned over to him the forged reports. After that, I drove out to see Parsons, still laid up in bed.
Who spilled the beans?
You did, mainly. I didn't believe that guy here yesterday afternoon. I didn't believe the woman who was supposed to be his wife. So let it go at that. I'm here to find David Parsons, Jr. Let's stop playing games.
Don't get fresh with me, boy. I've crunched many a loud talker just like you.
You want me to walk out of here and start jamming up your works right now, or do you want to listen? You've botched up everything so far. Do I handle it, or do we keep on like this?
I'm going to kill you when I get on my feet.
In the meantime, you're going to lie there and like it. I came out here to find your son. You arranged to throw me off his trail by hiring a woman to play his wife and a man to appear and pretend he was your son. Let's take it from there. I understand you've had private detectives looking for him all over the country. What agency?
Universal Operators.
Who's in charge of it there?
Man named Underwood.
Have they got any leads?
Nothing for 12 days.
Did he take anything?
I don't know. We haven't made an audit.
Well, there'll be an audit. I've got the machinery started right now.
Who do you think...
Shut up and lie down, or you'll bust a blood vessel. Is Mrs. Parsons in town?
I sent her down to Palm Springs.
All right, it's 10:15 now. If I remember right, there's a plane from Palm Springs about noon. Call her there and tell her I'll be at her house at 2 o'clock. I want to talk to her.
Are you giving me orders?
I sure am. I want everybody in that household there. 2 o'clock. You arrange it.
I'll arrange nothing for you. Now get out of here.
Call who you have to call. 2 o'clock, Mr. Parsons. I left him fuming on the phone and drove my rented car downtown to the offices of Universal Operatives Incorporated. Mr. Underwood, the man in charge of finding David Parsons, Jr., shook my hand and told me he could report nothing to me about the case. I asked him to phone old man Parsons, which he did. That changed his mind. He broke down and gave me an hour-long story on what they'd done to locate the missing man. When he was finished, it came out the same way. They'd run into blank walls everywhere. They had no idea where David Parsons might be. I told Underwood he and his staff were fired and that Mr. Parsons would confirm it. I left him fuming on the phone. Expense account item 10, $4, 2 drinks and lunch, all alone. After that, I drove over to the residence of David Parsons, Jr. Mrs. Parsons was a tall, graceful woman in her late 30s, settled on a sofa in front of the fireplace. The clothes she was wearing, the house itself, the appointments of the formal room, all suggested a well-run, well-kept sort of life.
I've answered so many questions from those private detectives.
I'm sorry to put you through it all again.
You must operate in a rather high-handed manner, Mr. Dollar. My father-in-law expressly told me the point here is not to let any of this get into the papers.
The point here is to find your husband, Mrs. Parsons. He's been missing 12 days now.
Well, I suppose I was the last one to see him. It was after dinner. He went upstairs. I didn't see him after that.
This would be...
The 13th. Yes, it was.
Did he sleep here that night?
His bed had been slept in, yes.
Then he really disappeared sometime on the 14th.
I suppose that's accurate. He wasn't in his office that day.
Did he take a car?
No. But I know the private detectives checked the cab companies
He
to
could
see
have flagged one 2 blocks away. How about clothes? Did he pack anything?
Not a thing.
Money?
I don't know.
Okay. Can you think of any enemies who might want to harm your husband?
Enemies? Oh, dear, no.
Think a minute.
Well, perhaps in his office, in his business, there's someone. But he never discussed what went on there with me.
Mm-hmm. Are you sure?
It was a rule. This is our home. That is David's business. We just never talked about what went on in his office at all.
How long have you and Mr. Parsons been married?
18 years next July.
Have you been getting along?
Of course we've been getting along. We've gotten along always.
Ever discussed the probability of divorce or anything like that?
Certainly not.
Can you think of any reason why Mr. Parsons would just walk out and not come back?
None whatsoever.
Have the people in his office been worried about him?
Well, I believe Mr. Ecker's the only one who knows. The others think he's away on a business trip.
In other words, the whole thing's been kept quiet.
Oh, yes, of course. This merger situation is quite delicate. As you know,
Mrs. Parsons, were you very close to him?
I beg your pardon.
Don't beg my pardon. Just answer the question. Everybody seems to be worried about a merger, not about a man. Did you spend time together, do things together?
Well, of course. We entertained frequently, we traveled, we had common interests.
What?
Well, home, of course.
What else?
I don't know what you mean.
Did you enjoy each other, go out together, have fun?
Oh, really?
Did he have a hobby?
Well, yes, sort of. David liked to read and write a little. He fancied himself a scholar along some lines.
What lines?
Oh, literature. Of course, it was just an indulgence.
Where did he indulge himself?
He had a small study upstairs.
Would it be possible to look at that room?
Oh, yes, I suppose so.
All right, I'll get to that in a minute. Mr. Parson, drink very much?
Cocktails before dinner, maybe 2 or 3 after.
Ever any long drinking jobs on the town?
David never went off and drank, if that's what you're trying to find out.
Oh, that's what I'm trying to find out. Is he in good health?
Yes. Perfect, I think.
What's the name of his doctor?
Stanley Warner, Dr. Warner.
Okay. How about his attitude?
What do you mean?
What kind of man is he? Quiet, loud, what?
Oh, I'd say David is, and always has been, a very quiet person.
Like his work?
Of course, he loves it.
His home?
I'm terribly afraid there's a great deal of insinuation in these questions you ask, Mr. Dollar.
What have you been doing in Palm Springs?
Resting.
Got a boyfriend?
Mr. Dollar.
Have you?
I resent that very much. Naturally, with my husband here, I go out with friends there. David knows about it.
He have a girlfriend?
You're being ridiculous.
No, you're being ridiculous.
What?
You sit here and describe the kind of association a man has with a drug clerk who sells him cigarettes, and you call it a marriage. Your husband disappears from the face of the earth, and you romp off to Palm Springs, forgetting all about it. You're insulted when I ask you what's wrong. You're hurt when I ask you how come, and you're annoyed when I mention it.
What on earth do you want me to do?
File a missing persons complaint right away. Get some help in here if it isn't too late.
Too late?
It could be, lady. It just could be you and your father-in-law have fooled around too long. She made the call. A half an hour later, 2 detectives from the Missing Persons Bureau were out here gathering facts. I tagged along. They questioned Mrs. Parsons, the servants. They examined the study as well as his bedroom. From all they could gather, David Parsons had nothing but the clothes on his back when he disappeared. By mid-afternoon, the police had started on old man Parsons and gone downtown to question the members of David Parsons' office force. The district attorney moved in quickly and negated my court order, impounding the books and records for a careful audit to determine if any money or bonds were missing. They promised to keep me informed. I went on my own.
Come in, please.
Dr. Stanley Warner had a 4-suite office on Wilshire Boulevard. He was a big graying man who looked as though he played a lot of golf and drank a lot of whiskey when he had the chance. I told him about Parsons being missing and asked for some details.
Well, according to my records, I examined him the 1st of last month. He was in good health. Excellent for a man of his age and responsibility.
Could you explain that, Doctor?
No, I was thinking only by comparison. David Parsons is 40 years old. He's held a position of tremendous responsibility for many years. For a lesser man, or for a frailer man, the incidence of organic disturbance in this age area increases considerably. David Parsons' case, that didn't seem to hold true.
Doctor, are you talking about the pressure from his father?
You know the old man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about that, yes. He cracked up a lot of people.
How do you suppose David Jr. escaped?
He knew how to escape, at least for periods of time, get a complete rest.
Was there any indication or any reason whatsoever when you examined him to suspect that he might suffer from some sort of mental trouble?
No. I'd say that when I examined him, he was in excellent mental shape, too.
I see. Did you ever meet him outside the office?
Socially?
Yeah.
Yes. Both belonged to the same country club. Played golf with him several times, seen him at dances, other affairs.
Mm-hmm. He and Mrs. Parsons strike you as a happy couple?
I'll answer that by saying that happiness is intangible. I envied him, though, not because of his wife, you understand, but because with all the requirements that were made of him, he was still a gentle, decent man.
He ever appear with other women?
Not that I know of.
Did you ever have occasion to talk with him with his hair down?
Once. Startled me at first. I was aware that he was a man of education and culture, but I was quite taken aback by his ability to quote the classics. Seemed incongruous somehow. I remember this day we met in the club. We had a drink. I don't think anyone was there except the waiters. I was talking to him, and suddenly he dropped off the conversation, and he stared ahead, and then he began to quote a Greek, Callicles.
Callicles?
Yes. I was so impressed by the passage, I took the trouble to look it up myself and write it down. I have it. Yes. Here. I can still see him quoting that word for word. Read it.
But if there were a man who had sufficient force, he would shake off and break through and escape from all this.
Go on, will you, please?
He would trample underfoot all our formulas and spells and charms, and all our laws which are against nature. The slave would rise in rebellion and be lord over us, and the light of natural justice would shine forth. When did Parsons quote this to you, Doctor?
Monday. The day before he disappeared.
Now, here's our star to tell you about tomorrow's final intriguing episode of this week's story.
The answer is with that old Greek who lived 3,000 years ago. Tomorrow we'll find it. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, is transcribed in Hollywood. Written by John Dawson, it is produced and directed by Jack Johnstone. Be sure to join us tomorrow night, same time and station, for the next exciting episode of Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Roy Rowan speaking.
We hope you enjoyed this weekend's presentation, One Nostalgic Weekend. This is your announcer, Dex Rose, speaking. The exclusive producers of One Nostalgic Weekend are Jonathan Rios and Jackie Gonzalez. The presentation has been edited, produced, and hosted by Jonathan Rios. One Nostalgic Weekend has been a Jimbo Fail Exchange production.
You are listening to the WON Radio Network.
We'll be right back with more radio classics right after these messages.
It'd be great if life came with a remote control. You know, you could hit pause when you needed to, or hit rewind. Like that time you knocked down that wasp's nest.
Uh-oh.
Or that time you forgot to roll up your windows in the car wash.
Fantastic.
Yeah, a remote control would have come in handy then. Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a